Olfa. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Oh, so there is really a fireplace, okay?
Well, it's not real, but it's what we're working with.
That's fine. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for the invitation. Really appreciate it.
Of course. And where are you right now?
DC.
Okay. Yeah. And you're in DC like most of the time?
This period, yes, because of the other two organizations that I started, and these are nonprofit organizations. They are more around my home country, some of the strategic studies, and kids in Tunisia. So I needed to be in DC to be able to, kickstart these organizations.
All right. Yeah. Well, cool. Yeah, it's we're gonna give another minute or two, and then let everyone in from the waiting room.
Okay.
And
okay.
And then we'll start talking to you about your life and your work.
Okay. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So you guys do these once a month or at once?
Well, it's been a learning experience, and I used to do these in person at my last business, and it was always everyone's favorite thing to just to change it up and stop what we're doing and have some outside perspective and things. And then so we started doing it maybe 3 or 4 months ago. Part of it in response to COVID, and then. Now we're kind of learning that there's many flavors of these chats. So yeah, we're doing basically fireside chats with really interesting kind of accomplished people like yourself, and then we're also starting to do, because we found the content that comes from these is a really powerful marketing tool. So it's like 3 birds with 1 stone, but we found that we still want to talk to a lot of our customers. So even though not all of our customers are the most interesting people, we have local IT companies and things, but I mean, they're great people, but we started turning those into customer interviews, just one-on-one.
Yes.
And that's been really good too. So I think we're still learning a little bit, and there's the fireside chats, which is everybody. We'll just invite customers and the team, and then we've started doing these one-on-one interviews. And then I actually have started interviewing for one of my clients. I've started interviewing their customers for 5-minute clips to then get content for them about their business and create little highlight reels. So it's a little bit of experimenting, but this is something that we're just kind of having fun with and bringing people into the organization. And
looking forward to getting started.
Yeah. So Coop, do you want to let everybody in?
Yeah. Let the games begin.
All right. Let me know when we're
admitting people. We've got 10 people coming in here and more to come.
Okay. Well, Olfa, while we are letting everybody join us, I will just introduce the kind of audience and then the format. So in the audience, we're going to have, I'm actually seeing Elliot Silverstein, who's a fairly new client from KB Financial. Hello, Elliot. So we got some customers.
Hi there.
All right. Customers, friends, the Nerdwise team. Of course, this is being recorded, so the whole internet is here with us in spirit or in the future. And the format's going to be about 20-30 minutes of really just kind of learning about you, Olfa, your story as an entrepreneur, how you got to be where you are today, all the way from growing up in Tunisia. And then I'm really curious to learn kind of what got you into this industry. I don't want to call it completely construction, because I know that there's more to it than that, but I'm definitely curious to learn kind of what drew you there. So we'll spend about 20 to 30 minutes just kind of catching up, and then we're going to open it up to questions from the group and have just kind of open conversation. So with that, I will introduce Olfa really quick, and then Olfa, I'd love it if you could introduce yourself in your own words. But my first conversation with Olfa, and I think we had a couple, and you were just real quick with it in terms of our conversation. I remember it just flew by, and you said, look, if you can give me 10 meetings in a month, that's what I need. I'll be very happy. And I said, yeah, I think we can do that. And I really, at the time, didn't even understand what your business was, but I knew enough about that, that you had enough of the right things that we were going to be able to do that for you. And then a month later, I think even further into COVID, we caught up, and you gave us a shot. Of course, it worked out, and we were able to deliver. And that was, I think, 4 or 5 months ago now. So, you've been a client for a good period of time. It's been fun learning about your business and seeing our service kind of activate a lot of your community that you already had, and help you kind of transform over the last few months as COVID's changed up a lot of things for you. But I still want to learn, maybe even on this call, a little bit more about what Concord Project Technologies actually does. So maybe with that, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself a little bit, kind of tell people, where you're from, what you do, and then I know you've got many different kind of arms to your business, but if you wouldn't mind walking through that and telling everybody just about Olfa and Concord. And thank you again for doing this, and welcome.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. It's my pleasure. And thank you for everybody logging in today. I'm sure everybody's from a different background, so this is quite interesting. Well, okay, long story short, because you've asked so many questions there. So I guess, well, my name is Olfa Hamdi. I'm Tunisian American. I started my company in the construction sector, so construction projects, specializing in management methods to deliver on time and on budget delivery, which is quite interesting, right? We all know that's an issue for construction projects. But maybe a quick overview on some of the background. So I'm an engineer. I hold 2 Masters of Science, one in engineering and one in project management for industrial large projects. And I hold also a law degree in construction-related disputes. After doing that, I worked as a researcher and then as an auditor of large construction projects. And I was able to sort of invent a methodology that helps deliver projects on time and on budget, and sometimes reduces the cost. And that's what got me to get my actually green card in the US and become an immigrant to this great country by actually getting the, it's called the extraordinary ability category, so related to that invention. Now, after that, that's when I decided to actually start a company to commercialize my invention. And, mostly I was working primarily with the clients I knew from my own research, and the business is okay, making money, but it was not formal in the sense of going after new clients, new markets, getting outside of the comfort zone, basically. And that's when you somehow, with the power of your own marketing operation, you found out about me. And when we spoke, I just like this, objective metric driven mentality, and and I like working with companies that are also like growing, right? So it feels like we're growing together. And yeah, that's where we are. I'm very happy working with you guys. Yeah.
Thanks. And where did the name come from? Like, what's Concord Project?
Yes. So the name came from actually 2 reasons. So the day when I was actually, I decided to move forward with this, I was in Concord, California. So that was where I was. Okay. But then I looked into the name. Okay, what does Concord mean in the dictionary? And I found out that it means alignment to a certain extent, a concord of ideas, etc., which is the essence of the methodologies, how to align all of these engineering, procurement, construction, business, all of these people with conflicting interests somehow, so that we get on time and on budget delivery. So somehow I felt like, okay, that's the right name. Let's go. Let's move forward with it.
Okay. I was thinking that a Concord project was like a massive project or something, but that makes sense.
Well, the methodology is used on also mega projects as well, but yeah, the name came, the story is different.
Okay, cool. And then what drew you towards this industry? And I'm going to ask the question later. I always fumble over these types of questions a little bit. At least I prepare myself to fumble. Maybe I don't always, but it's got to be unique for you as a female in the construction industry. I feel like you've got to be kind of like a almost like a unicorn or like a unique character in a lot of those settings. But can you tell us like what drew you towards construction and then yeah, I mean, what's that like as a woman?
Okay, well, I actually grew up in a family. I'm originally from a city in Tunisia called Gafsa, and it's a large mining city. So Tunisia was, one of the top phosphate producers in the world, and this town is actually a phosphate production town. And so I grew up in a way just, and looking at those big engines and like those trucks with the wheel is like the size of a home. And that kind of in a way like okay, I was fascinated by construction overall, just heavy construction. And then my dad is an engineer, so he influenced my view of the world. And then I just that's what kind of like when I was thinking about okay, which path to take, especially I was doing my studies in France actually prior to coming to the US. The construction industry just attracted me because of that initial background, growing in that environment, but also because it's an industry where you physically see what you build. So I like just physically seeing what I build. And that's where my journey started. Of course, what I ended up doing is very specialized, right? But that's what drew me to the industry. Now,
Okay.
as a woman, for a long time, I never really thought of myself as a woman in the industry. Especially when you're like an entrepreneur, or an expert and then an entrepreneur. And I left corporate America, in this traditional sense, early. And so I'm like hustling, right? Trying to make it happen. Even when I encounter challenges, I don't think these are women challenges or men challenges. I just think it's the entrepreneur challenges, right? And so I only became conscious about that and realized, okay, it's true. There are literally like a handful, especially in the subsector of women entrepreneurs, and it's a male-dominated industry. That's when I made a lot of progress, and then I started looking back. That's when I realized the whole gender issue.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I wonder, and I mean I can imagine that it's easier or not easier, but I mean I can imagine that as an entrepreneur you don't have to deal with as much bureaucracy or as many layers to where you're trying to that could affect your career, your growth, because you really are in control versus trying to kind of navigate these organizations, without being like in the boys club.
Well, I don't know. Well, I'll tell you this. Generally speaking, I think there are some challenges associated with either diversity in general that are encountered both in established settings and also when you're an entrepreneur on your own. It's just that's the nature of the businesses we're driven in and the nature of the maturity where we didn't reach yet in many industries. And I think the primary thing is just something I love about this country is just it's a numbers game economy. So you just knock at doors. If you take that numbers game approach, you'll overcome many of those obstacles. And that's what I love about your approach, guys. We're just hitting everybody, and at the end of the day, people,
Yeah, well,
you'll find somebody interested.
it helps when you have such product market fit. I mean, you have something that people in the industry really need. And I mean, I oftentimes when I'm doing demos and give examples, I love using you as an example as somebody who had this in-person business, but had really a big history and a community of people that knew who you were, knew your brand, and already were further down that path of awareness. So when it was time for us to come in and present them with an offer and tap them on the shoulder, I mean, you made our jobs easy, to be honest. But that's the case. I mean, when we work with, and it's the same for any marketing and any type of business, is if you've got product market fit, it's going to be the marketer's job becomes that much easier.
And I think the part is you mentioned something very interesting there, which is I learned that obviously by doing, but I think marketing is not like a one strategy approach. It's really like a one-step approach. It's literally like multiple steps. For example, for years, I invested in the publication, so free publication and knowledge dissemination to a community of people that trust Concord and trust me, and trust also people we bring, experts within Concord, because we share on a weekly basis, blogs, insights, quarterly issues, white papers, and so on. So by doing that knowledge for a long time, there is this faithful in a way community, or people that just trust the information because they keep learning. And so by the time you guys got involved and we started, basically following up with them and saying, here's an actual product that we'd like to talk to you about. It felt like, okay, that could not have been done without this in a way. So yeah. I think it's like a multiple step approach.
No, but, absolutely.
We recently worked with you on identifying a list of companies and people in adjacent construction sectors. So not my core industrial, but going maybe to other types of sectors. And so looking forward to, testing that out as well, and trying to get outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah, and it all does help. I mean, it all adds up. And so even with the new person that you meet next week, they're going to see they'll see the community, they'll see the credibility, they'll see that you're actually an established thing through all those years. And it's it's fun. You definitely did the hard work in building your community and your brand before we came in. And then just as an entrepreneur, does entrepreneurship run in your family as well? Like, are you the first, or what, what pushed you? I know you had an invention and things were probably exciting, but what pushed you over the edge to start your own business?
Yeah, I think, my grandfather is a farmer, so I think that can be considered an entrepreneur to a certain extent, right? But no, my father, he was a member of like the public administration, going through the ladders, becoming like CEO, etc. So it's, I grew up, and the system I grew up in is very much a system where it's about security, and security in the cultural sense is working for the public sector or working in a large corporation for 20, 30 years or more. That's what security is. That's what success is. And so when I finished my studies in the US, and then I joined corporate America, and then I just, I decided to leave and it's kind of like start from the beginning. It was quite tough overall. It was tough, more around actually like maybe mentally and emotionally, and a lot of people thought, okay, this is insecure. This is not wise to do a career shift like that. Entrepreneurship is about investment, so you're gonna invest for many years before you start seeing a lot of those rewards. And so in that investment period, so many things come your way to just discourage you from, and tell you to stop. So I'd say the reason entrepreneurship worked for me and still works, and there's no way for me to go back on that, is I think it's a natural thing. I'm my training and the way I am, I'm very much into creation, developing new opportunities, just creating, something off the ground. And I don't fit well into structured systems. And so, so that was very well for the startup phase. And now I'm the one trying to build structure inside the company. So look at me, trying not to act like a corporation. But anyway, that was kind of like the reason. And it's a lifestyle, right? So yeah, these are some of the factors.
Okay. And so can you tell me just a little bit about, like, I guess, how long have you been in business? Seems like a decade almost, just is like my sense, is that you've been at it for a while. And then how are you making money? Like, what, I know you've moved some of your training to virtual and online, and you've got your own brand of certification that seems to have taken off.
Yes.
so I know training is an element, but can you talk about how long you've been in business, how you're making money now, and maybe how that's changed as a result of COVID, or just your business? But yeah.
Yeah. So before starting Concord, I worked as an independent consultant. So I was a sort of freelance independent consultant doing the same work I used to do, which is auditing, consulting, advisory, strategic services, and things like that. And I've done that for a number of years before officially starting Concord. During those years, I was actually, in a way, working on Concord. So before formally incorporating the company. And then actually during those years of being an independent consultant, I started a research nonprofit organization to actually do more market research on whether my methodology could become a viable product and a commercially, global product. So I've done that in a nonprofit setting, just to be able to connect with a larger community. And that's when I realized, okay, this can become a commercial global product in various ways. So these years were, it's about a decade total, but these years were preceding Concord. So Concord was incorporated in February 2017. And so it started basically with and I'll tell you a little bit about the story strategy-wise of the company and how it started generating cash flow and all of that. Because it's interesting, because you learn by doing, right? So I started the company building a technology that is a cloud-based solution that helps organizations manage large projects. And based on this methodology, it's called advanced work packaging. Now, when I did that, and it was about a development of about a year, there was a lot of investment in it. When we brought that to market, when we started basically, getting to started and all of that, we encountered the challenge of actually people need to be mentally and training wise, they need to change their perception. They need to adopt the methodology prior to adopting the technology to do that. And so there was requests for consulting, for training, for coaching, for project services. All of these non-technology related that need to precede, prior to the actual technology. And so at the time, I actually gathered the advisory board because based on my estimates, it meant that the company needs to push for this and become both a technology and a consulting company, which, I'm a believer that if you want to do everything, you become good at nothing, so you got to choose which way to go and strategize. So I gathered an advisory board, members from, senior members from the industry, people close to me, close to the company, members of the company, and we had what we call a balanced scorecard workshop. Are you familiar with the balanced scorecard?
I know kind of the tool, but not probably in this.
So the balanced scorecard methodology, this is a strategy, a business strategy exercise that is used in virtually almost every the top Fortune 500 companies. So it's done at larger scales, both government, private, etc. And its purpose is that you gather people that have the right input to your business, and then you strategize, basically you define your mission and vision, your values, and then you strategize your objectives, customer-wise, revenue-wise. What do you want to achieve as a business? And then from there, you trace your back down into what actions are you going to take? Whether marketing or sales or operations or new knowledge or product development, all of these things. So you don't make decisions on these things prior to you identifying that strategy and identifying the business objective first. And so when we've done that, that's when the decision came to put aside technology. So no more investment on technology. We're going to go for the consulting and the training. And we're going to do this under the umbrella of 3 keywords: predictability, knowledge, and empowerment. And what that means is that this is the brand of the company. We're going to deliver predictability for our clients. We're going to do that through the dissemination of knowledge. So inside the company, we need to invest even more in the production of knowledge. And we're going to do that through empowerment. And what that means is that we empower our clients and everybody that interacts with the company and its ecosystem to become more empowered to implement the methodology and improve projects overall. So with that, actually, there was a list of initiatives. This was done in 2018 that I, as a CEO of the company, I needed to start basically plan on where to invest. And one of those initiatives is actually marketing, by the way. So we looked at all of these initiatives. And since then, I basically started moving the company toward more consulting and training and identifying standard products. So that has been going very well. That's when we started, virtually making more money. It got very much accelerated because now you're focusing all your resources on something very specific, right?
Yeah.
So when COVID happened, all of our business model in terms of these services, consulting and training, were done actually face-to-face. So most of it, maybe 60% in person, 40% virtual. So I myself go to client construction sites like refineries and so on. So when COVID happened, virtually we couldn't do that, right? And projects in the petrochemical industry, and a lot of projects got either shelved or canceled or slowed down. I mean, there were a lot of changes. So that's when I decided under that strategy that our training, which we've been doing in person, we're moving that in self-paced virtual LMS academy environment, and we're pushing for a certification. And then continuing consulting, but pushing for that as like the number one product that the company presents to the industry. And so investment in that started earlier last year, but then I accelerated it when COVID happened. Like in March, when I saw all the cancellations happen, that's it. I said, we're not traveling anymore. Even if the regulations come back, we're just going 100% virtual. And that's what basically has led to right now, the whole self-paced virtual training certification. I mean, all of that system in place. Does that answer your question?
It does. I mean, and I'm wondering if you're happier now with what you're doing in terms of a virtual offering exclusively. And I'm not saying maybe not happier, but if you're finding more success or scale or operational efficiency or whatever the case is, do you like where you've landed now? Is this the future, or?
Well, definitely, I like that because that's scalable, right? In a much faster way than any business or services you do based on man hours, right? And I'm always looking to grow the value of the company by basically creating those scalable products, right? So that we could generate revenue in a way that somehow is automated, but with an established process. Let's put it that way. With the one thing that was good in a way, business wise, of course, we know this, for as a society, this has been tragic, the COVID-19 situation. But from a business standpoint, what has helped a lot is, the construction industry is an old-fashioned industry. So selling virtual is quite tough. We're one of the most resistant industries to adopting technology, actually, comparing to IT, media, services, education, all of that. Yeah. The construction industry is very resistant to that. And I've noticed that. I've seen that when we introduced our platform, 3 years ago. It was like everybody was saying, nobody would like to work virtual, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, like the most virtual you can get is people using SharePoint. I mean, that's it. So when COVID happened, somehow it was like a force that just forced everybody in the industry to seek virtual and continue business. And so there is more willingness to adopt virtual products. And so what I would say is that had Concord invested in this like a year ago, we wouldn't be having the same results as we had today, because it's like we were ready for it. And then the market was also seeking something, and it was perfect timing. That's kind of like how it's happening.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's been an accelerator of a lot of change. And I guess that's sort of my next question, but maybe you've answered it, is like, do you think that this is probably here to stay for you?
Okay.
That's the question. So do you think this is here to stay? Like, you're not going to go back? I mean, maybe you'll go back to some in person, but this virtual certification, virtual training, I mean, that's going to be a part of your business And for actually, I should ask for the industry, for the construction industry, do you think that they're going to change, or is it just a temporary? They're kind of changing now, but are they going to go back to the old way?
Yeah. Well, I think change is change is in a way, it's like iterative, right? So people, it's like in cycles, but then you keep moving forward. That's the objective. So for the construction industry, I think, especially with the duration of the COVID restrictions, so it's not like a 1-2 month thing. We're literally, approaching a year now, almost, next, and then it might even be longer. So the change is going to impact behaviors and impact organizations as well. If they're looking at their numbers, reducing travel, reducing the need for face-to-face, encouraging people to be more, involved, working virtually, remotely, etc. I think that's going to continue. I think it's a positive change for the construction industry to be able to, become even more technology, open to the use of technology. And for Concord, there is no going back. Actually, we were even, emphasizing that further. And I'll tell you the reason, in addition to the fact that it's, for business in a way, this enables us to reach capital project professionals and construction professionals globally. So when somebody is in Singapore or in South Africa or in Tunis or in Paris or in Texas or in DC, they all go through the standard same knowledge, and they are trained into thinking about how to deliver on time and on budget, on time and on budget projects the same way. We can't do that without technology, right? And I think that's the part where I think is powerful, is the ability to just standardize the knowledge and equalize access to best practices and professional competency. So I think that's a value for under the empowerment side of Concord. I think,
Yeah.
I see that growth.
I didn't know when I wanted to bring this one part up, but I didn't, and I think I'm not alone, but I didn't know much about Tunisia. Yes. Honestly, even before I met you, I never met anyone from Tunisia. So I didn't really have a lot of context for Tunisia. I knew it was in Africa. And last night I Googled it, and I Googled, facts about Tunisia. I mean, it's like paradise.
It is very.
It's not what you think of. It's like Mediterranean paradise.
Yep. Yeah, Tunisia is it's in North Africa, so it's right on top of actually Africa, the African continent, and it is very close to Europe. So it's very close to, like a 2-hour flight to Paris, 30-minute flight to Italy. I mean, it's very, very close to Europe, and it's a small population, about 12 million people. With a culture that is, at the intersection of literally various regions. So European influence, French influence, Islamic influence, and then, of course, the culture of North Africa itself. And Tunisia is actually, as a matter of fact, is the only democracy in the Arab world. So the whole Arab Spring was started by Tunisia before Egypt. And it's a country where it's a beautiful country, as you can say, within the span of a few hours driving, you can literally see a coastal city and then the mountain and then the desert in a day. You could literally see all of those in a day.
Yeah, I was surprised.
It is like paradise, yeah.
Your family's still in Tunisia?
Yes, my family's in Tunisia. I grew up in Tunis up to the age of 17, and that's when I went to France for my studies. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't want to miss talking about that, because it's incredibly unique. I mean, you probably don't run into very many other Tunisian people in the States. How often do you go back?
Well, prior to COVID, I go back almost 4 or 5 times a year. Because we do a lot of work in Europe as well. So each time I'm in France, it's just 2-hour flight or 1.5-hour flight. So I kind of like go back and forth as much as I can. And I still have family there, of course. So the food is great as well. It's a touristic country, by the way. So in a way, it's unknown to the American tourist, actually. but it is very, very visited by Europeans. Hey, fun fact, Tunisia is the country where Star Wars was filmed.
I saw that as I saw that on the list of fun facts last night. Yeah, yeah, I did see that.
The whole, the planet of Tatooine. Tatooine is a city that is in the south of Tunisia.
That's so funny. Yeah, you always wonder where those things happen, and very cool. And so I want to open it up to some questions from other people before I go further, because I have a few others I could ask. Coop, do we have any questions, or for anybody who's participating, if they want to jump in, ask Olfa a question, just unmute yourself, unless Coop has one lined up already. But like, let's open it up to some other folks, and then we can come back around to me if it makes sense.
The first one I had written was from Kaylin on Team Nerdwise. And Olfa, thanks for being our special guest today. It really means a lot to have you be our guest of honor. It's incredible to hear your story. So the first question from Kaylin is, when it comes to your career and your company, what are you most proud of and why?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think I'm proud of the ability to trigger change in an industry that is so resistant to change. Mm-hmm. And when you do that in an objective, professional manner, even when you get people to just you get reactions either from all the old guards of the industry or the old, basically the establishment in a way. And because you just do your work right, objectively, in a quality way, you serve your clients with integrity, and you take pride in your work, the quality of your work, you always prevail. And so I would say the number one thing I'm proud of is the quality and the substance of our work, which ultimately always ends up changing the industry, because our industry is really about the shift into the way we do business. And that's a people's change. It's not a systems change. There's a lot of people's change in there. So I'm proud of our ability to influence people.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that response. And the next question we have is coming from Chelsea. So if you could unmute yourself, intro, and ask away.
Yeah. So my question for you is just, you mentioned moving to 100% virtual. And I just was wondering, what was the hardest part for you, or the most difficult part for you, your company, and what have you learned now that you've been doing it a while, and what would you have done differently 6 months ago?
Chelsea, that's a great question. I love it. So I think the first part, the one thing I would say I learned is to, a lot of planning is not good. Just, you gotta do it, because it's not a one-step process. Like, you basically try fast and fail fast and adjust and learn and keep going. It will never be perfect. So, and that, speaking of preparing the trainings, the recordings, using the LMS system, establishing the quality process, the admin background, the websites, the marketing channels. I mean, all of that, there's so many pieces of the puzzle. Just start with the core, and just get into it. So I think that was the number one thing I think was done well, is we just jumped right into it, and we figured it out as we go. And I would say the one thing that helped us a lot also is actually reaching out and asking people's opinion. I'll give you an example. When I first thought we should, move virtual, we started with this, putting together a course, and we're about to record it in a way that, let's say, a course that lasts in sessions of 1 hour each, basically. And I actually, I got this recommendation from somebody that says, okay, speak to this education specialist. So it's a person that specializes in learning. She has a PhD in learning. And ask her, some advice about, what's the best way to have that best experience for the users. And when I presented to her the curriculum, and we were really about to start recording, she just told me, look, people will have a hard time going through this. It's not going to work. A lot of professionals are busy. They don't have time. The attention span is very short. It's going to be very hard to sell. To get effective, you need to break down your entire course, and it's a 13-hour course, into small chunks of 10 minutes max. And that's your top duration of a lesson. It should be 10 minutes. If you're unable to teach somebody something new in 10 minutes, then something is wrong with the way you're not there yet. And I think that kind of it created some rework, because we had to go back and redo the entire design of the curriculum and how we're going to do it, etc. But it ended up benefiting us really a lot. And so I would say, if I were to do it again, I would actually engage some of these specialists actually early on. That way we don't have to do that kind of rework. Okay, what else can I think of? I think if I had also to redo things, I would have thought of the sales process and used a sales expert earlier than going into it, right? So because I was not I understood sales is an art, etc., but I'm one of those engineers that just did not understand or appreciate the importance of that skill of knowing how to sell and the best practices and that's in sales. And so I would say a lesson learned: don't discount the importance of sales and the expertise of sales, and just do them in the beginning while you're putting everything together. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you.
Okay.
I had one that was written to me, and this is coming from Lauren. Olfa, this year, what has been the smallest change you and the company have made that resulted in the biggest result or the biggest impact in a positive way?
Oh, wow. Okay. I need to think about that. That's a tough question. Who asked that?
That's Lauren.
Lauren. Okay. Lauren, you're very smart. So, okay, the smallest change. I think the company itself went through a lot of changes. I think all of them are not small changes in a way. But I would say, let me think, a small change that ended in a lot of results. Oh, okay. Well, we actually just, we use LinkedIn a lot for generating our sales as well. So actually I'm going to talk about two changes: and getting more leads. And so that's getting something very specific. The number one is, because we use LinkedIn a lot, we actually just almost quadrupled our socials. So our posts. So we used to post, let's say, once a week. We just said this month, every month now we're going to do 4 times as much. And that ended up actually just generating more traffic to our website, which ended up getting people to spend more time on our website as well. So when they get there, we have quality content, right? Which we have been working on for years. So they spend more time, and that gets them into the funnel basically of trust in the company, reaching out, marketing, etc. So that was a small change. I mean, just saying, we're quadrupling our social posts, but it ended up really impacting the leads. The second small change associated with the leads is actually, with leads that are high quality leads. So we have this large database of people that we send our newsletter to, and we send marketing campaigns to, etc. But they in a way, all of them that are there are varieties or sensibilities. I don't know how to call those among those groups. So you have two engineers in the community, but one of them is interested more toward management side of engineering, and the other is interested into the creation of the packages, for example. I'm just citing an example. Or one of them is interested in small projects and the other is working on mega projects. So to be able to just extract those, we developed this once a month live webinar events. And that's how we say, okay, there is let's say 1 hour of advanced work packaging fundamentals, or 1 hour about AWP, for example, in the Middle East projects or site-based projects, etc. So when we did that and we advertised that to our community, we end up having a smaller group, maybe 100, 120 leads, but these are really targeted. We know they're there because they're interested in that particular topic. And so when we follow up with those, we know what we're telling them exactly. Like we and I think there was a small change. It's relatively small because it's like one webinar a month, but it's a webinar, with virtual and everybody virtual and Zoom and all of that. It's not that difficult, So it's a small change that ended up really like transforming and it had a major impact on our approach selling as well. And then finally, I would say a small change at the personal level, because all of us, it's, it takes a lot to just do work remotely. There is this book that I read. It's called Deep Work. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. So this book is called Deep Work, and it talks about professionals like all of us here that need to spend time concentrated to be able to produce work. And what he talks about basically is that in a virtual environment, when we receive all sorts of notifications, so on the phone, the email, the calendar reminder, all of those popping up here and there, that creates mental fatigue, even if we don't actually realize it. So let's say I open an email and I decide I'm not replying, even though I didn't reply and I went back to my work, it's actually occupying a space in my brain and it's added mental fatigue. And so one thing I did is disable notifications about things I just don't have to see. And so when I did that, I just felt like, okay, I'm more, generally speaking, my mind is like quite stable in the way I'm managing things on a day-to-day basis. And so that's a small change that just, I think, made a lot of difference for me on a personal level. So
I want to add on to that question, and this is something I'm personally always curious about hearing how other people do it. And I have fun with Coop. I think earlier today, Coop was bringing up a couple things he was working on, and it took me a minute to figure out, well, is this in the top 3 or not? And I guess my point is just, how do you stay productive? I think there's so much that goes into productivity that can be, it's a dynamic thing. It could be your physical health, mental health, the way you organize your stuff. But what are your kind of routines or your habits that you've built to keep yourself, mentally and otherwise, healthy and productive?
Well, healthy is something, productive is something else, right?
yeah, true. So let's go with productive.
Let's go with productive. So I think, I would say know what not to pay attention to. Like if you know what not to do. So eliminate distractions, literally get them out of your sight. I think that is the secret to productivity, because even if for me, that's kind of like what I try to focus on. So I don't, that's eliminate what not to do. Distractions. Of course, we can never eliminate distractions 100%, right? But I think that has, that has increased my productivity a lot. Yeah.
And what do you do to balance out productivity? And I guess what I'm saying is, do you have things that you work on that have nothing to do with your goals, that actually just give you creative outlets or other outlets that help you maintain sanity and productivity?
Well, I might not be the best person to provide advice on that. Okay. So you're making the assumption that I'm saying, maybe I'm not, I don't know. I'm just kidding. Well, I actually do this whole, in addition to Concord, I have a nonprofit that helps Tunisian kids. And so it's work too, but somehow it just disconnects me from what I do with Concord and the business and all of that, right? Because I mean, obviously I'm passionate about my industry. I want to help my industry, but helping companies save money is not a life purpose, right? So when I do that nonprofit giving back, it actually just I feel like, okay, I got this chance studying in the public school in Tunisia. I come from humble backgrounds. I was fortunate to actually get the scholarship based on my results and studies in Tunisia to study in France. And then when I came to the US, I had, I worked hard, yes, but the opportunity of being able to do that in this country, I don't take that for granted. So I feel like, okay, it's my duty in a way to just, I feel a sense of wanting to give back for both here and there, in a way, the two countries. So by doing that in a way that just takes me out of Concord and what I do with that. Well, and obviously, I'm sure you can guess, I don't have kids and I don't have distractions at home. So in a way that adds, that makes things, and it gives me more time to just do whatever I have to do, right? And I understand, especially with maybe parents listening here or something, or in similar settings, with everything else that happens, especially working from home, it can be difficult. So I would like to always say, okay, what I'm doing, this full disclaimer, I'm dedicating my life to this. So it's not, that I think the quantity of the time you put into things matters. And so, yeah. But then overall, actually, I'll say, I just like watching stupid shows, like, when I mean stupid is like something that just is funny and it doesn't make you think a lot. Like, I don't know, I would watch like 30 Rock, for example, for like half an hour or an hour in the evening, and it just disconnects my mind completely. So
yeah, I think we can all understand that.
Yeah.
Especially at this point, I'm like fishing for some new stupid show at this,
I went back to the old ones. I'm done with it.
Yeah. Coop, other questions? Anyone else got a question? Want to jump in?
Hey guys.
Hi, Frank.
How's it going?
Coming in from Planet Frank.
Yeah, what's up? How's that background? But Olfa, so I had a question. This is interesting stuff. If you were to have one or two top business goals coming in, where do you see yourself ending in this year, and then maybe the first quarter? What are your top objectives?
Thank you for mentioning that. For this year, my top objective is to basically secure a certain percent growth for the academy, what I mean, the certification, the training, and then I need to close a number of proposals on consulting. So these are the two, let's say, quantitative goals. So proposals, especially this month, last month, this month, and next month, it's all about closing, issuing proposals and closing them out, and then growing the sales on the academy and securing that growth. For the future, for next year, so for the training and certification and academy, my goal is that we need to reinforce our competitive advantage comparing to others in the industry and lead the global market in AWP, workplace planning, capital project management training. So I'm going want to not just maintain the leadership because we're the first. I want to get the leadership because we have a large market share, not just because I'm first, right? So that's what I want to work on. That's for 2021. And then, and then anyway, the business strategy is up for an update, which should happen next spring. So we've done it in 2018. So it's been about 2 years. then I need to gather of course, the advisory board and just have an update about that strategy as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I know it's probably tough to juggle what the top goals are and initiatives are. So.
Well, that's that's why to becoming productive is just knowing what you want to do and saying no to things that don't fit that. I mean, saying no is so important. It's just like, I used to, prior to doing this whole strategy thing and sticking to it, and I used to, any client that knocks at my door, I would take them. Anybody that asks for help, I would do it. And it's like you're stretched too thin, and nothing is growing. You're like a little here, a little here, a little here, a little here, and it's not feeding one growth. And so when you sit down, and if somebody here is listening and they're like leading a company or a department or a project, just sometimes it's important to get out of the day-to-day management and sit down and just say, business-wise, what are the top 2-3 objectives and how to get there? And then you commit to saying no to anything that doesn't fit that objective. Just say no, So, yeah.
Say no. Makes sense to me. Thank you all.
Say no. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. I really appreciate this conversation. You guys are one of my favorite contractors, and I hope we'll continue working together for a very long time. And thank you, Frank, for all the help you're doing.
Awesome.
I'm sure you recognized my lesson learned, saying I should have hired Frank way earlier than this. But
I love it. But it's amazing how you see the need for it, and you're working hard on it. And as we have our lessons and our speaking, you're really taking the feedback. So I think it's going to be amazing for you. These little tweaks that we're doing are going to really change the way that you see the business and each call an opportunity. So it's awesome that you're open to learning.
Yeah, I'm learning to become even, like a closer maybe one day.
I love it.
All right, we've got maybe time for one other question if there is one. If not, we can wrap up. Coop, anything in the queue?
No, I think that was a great way to end it. You actually stole some of my questions, and Frank coming in like a hologram, Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's not a nice way to end this. So nothing that's going to beat what we've already discussed.
Great. Well, Olfa, thank you so much again. If people want to get in touch with you, what's their preferred contact method?
Email. So I don't know, you guys, if you have, my email is ohamdi@tconglobal.com. But, on the website, so tconglobal.com, TCON or LinkedIn. LinkedIn is perfect. Just please mention the Nerdwise webinar, the way I know. But otherwise, thank you all. And I really wish you all a lot of success and happiness. So.
Thanks. You too. Olfa, thanks again. It's been amazing. We'll be in touch. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.